Welcome back to my channel, Classic Volkswagen Lover. This is Junior with Classic VW Bugs and Sonny the Super Beetle Full Restoration. In this slide presentation, I'm going to share with you the installation of the intake manifold and the M-piece casting. From my gasket set, I now get a gasket and install it over the flange connection in the head over the two 8mm studs, and make sure it is properly installed, aligned, and seated. After double checking the fitment, I now get ready to install my M-piece casting. I grab my M-piece casting and align it and install it over the two 8mm studs. After checking proper installation and fitment, then I get two copper washers and nuts and install them on each stud, but only finger tight. At this point, I finger tight the nuts and leave them slightly loose. Once I'm done, I move on to the next side of the engine and repeat all of the same steps on the other side of the engine. Install gasket. Install M-piece casting. Ensure proper alignment. Install copper washers and nuts. And remember that at this point we just want to finger tight them. Now that I am done with the step, I move on to check my flange to flange connection and ensure that the tins are not interfering with one of the flanges of the heads. I bought aftermarket chrome tins, so let's double check. This side here seems to be fine. Now I'll move on to check on the other side to make sure that my flange to flange connections are not being interrupted. So you can see that this side here, the tin, it's almost over the flange connection, so it needs to be modified. As opposed to sending it back, I'm choosing to cut a small piece because it won't affect the performance nor the cooling system on the engine and the exhaust system. Then I grab a white marker and I draw a line in the area that I'm about to cut. After double checking measurements, I draw a line down the edge that I plan to cut off. With a pair of cheater scissors, or perhaps if you have a Dremel with a cutting wheel, I proceed now to cut about 1/4 inch from the tin, and I'll do it one small piece at a time to ensure that I won't overcut, because if I cut too much I can't go back. I proceed to cut. And now I double check for clearance And I can see that now I won't have a flange to flange problem. And I will be able to do a flange to flange connection with the other external components of my exhaust system. I would have rather not have to cut, but no big deal. So you can see I cut off 1/4 inch from the tin. Now I proceed to get my rubber boots and install them over the end of the pipe on the intake. I now slide one of the rubber boots in the intake all the way through until I can see the edge of the pipe on the other side of the boot. Once I have completed the steps, I proceed to repeat the same steps on the other side of the intake by sliding the boot in until I can see the end of the pipe. And repeat the same steps for both ends. Now with the step completed and both pieces installed, I move with the intake to the top of the engine and check for alignment. Then I proceed to locate the 13mm nut that it's located near and close to the fuel pump. At this point, I'm trying to figure out the alignment. And as you can see, I have to remove the 13mm nut all the way out for proper fitment, alignment, and installation of the horseshoe shape connecting point in the stud that you see in the picture. The nut needs to be fully withdrawn from the stud, and then you can reinstall it after you install the intake in place. At this point, I won't worry about torquing or nothing like that. With the piece properly aligned and installed in place, you can reinstate the nut back to place and torque it later. Now I move on to align the end piece of the intake manifold with the end piece casting. And with it properly aligned, I proceed to slide the rubber boot over to the end casting piece to make sure that I have proper connection and have them properly fastened together with the rubber boot. And then if you have the clamps, you can install the clamps or you can install them later. Now I proceed to install the rest of my gaskets around the engine flange connections. And you repeat the same steps around the engine for both heads. At this point now you can think about retorquing your 13mm nut and your 8mm nuts. Make sure you reference your torque spec for your engine. At this point now both pieces of the intake manifold are installed and we're ready to move on and install the rest of our exhaust components. If you like the contents of this video, give me a thumbs up, like me and subscribe to my channel. Share my video with somebody that you know. And don't forget to check that bell so that every time I upload a video for Sonny's full restoration story, you get a notification. Until then, this is Junior with Classic BW Bucks. Junior out.